Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. This is the Finance Committee. This is Wednesday, August 12th, 2020 at 6:30 PM. The instructions to call in are on the agenda, and anybody is free and welcome to call in. The first order of business is to approve the previous minutes. I did see one edit under item number 3, and actually Dan caught this, that's reported that there was no subcommittee meeting, so I fixed that one. So with that one change, is there a motion on the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of August 6th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous vote. Next item is an update on this last subcommittee meeting. We did have one this week. We had it last night. There was new business, and the new business was the articles that I did pass out to all of you once, the entire list. Thanks to John, he got the entire list of articles. We passed it out to everyone at one point, and the department heads were asked to go through their list again and see if there would they could additionally return, and over $400,000 worth of additional ones came in. And I just got that list a half hour before this meeting started, so I will get that list out to everybody that didn't get it. It went to the subcommittee members, but I will get it to the full board later this evening. But it just, John.
Just a quick addition to that, Dana. Could you also send out that list I sent you of all the articles?
Yes.
Because there's a
I'll
three
send both.
pages of articles.
I'll send both together.
Okay, thank you.
And basically what we found out is that goes into the free cash pool. And the timing of it, which portion it makes, whether it makes this particular meeting or makes the next meeting. But this particular meeting is the hope, and it should be a much better number now with an additional 400,000. So when we look at, we've spent a lot of this season trying to find ways to take pressure off the operating budget. So tonight, we're going to vote a few articles, hopefully be done a little bit early. Tomorrow night, we should, I'm hoping, have a copy of the budget. If we don't vote a capital plan tonight, I'm hoping that we'll vote one for tomorrow night, because we have to have a public hearing on it, and I want to put that and the budget into the public hearing. And we're not going to have one from the board between now and then, but I want to put it in the notice, so people who would want to come to the public hearing next Friday would be able to chime in and see that. So that's, then next on the subcommittee, we talked a lot about the revolving articles. There's 2 articles in the warrant. One of them kind of expands the ability to pay for people on 3 different categories, 3 different departments. And the town administrator did explain that he's looking for that right now as a tool to help take pressure off budgets and so forth, to be able to buy some of these resources where there is some money right now in these funds. We'll talk about that when we get to the articles and start voting. Maybe we want to help him out with that, or maybe we don't. I don't know. We'll talk about it. And the other article is the big rack up that has all of the listings of the numbers, and basically the only decision we decided last night was that there just is not going to be enough time between now and next month to put into the budget the necessary funds to handle the revolving accounts and then dissolve the revolving accounts, or even to lower them or anything at this point. So that article might just go forward as it has done every year since we've had it. But we'll discuss that as well. So that was concerning those articles. We did also a quick recap of kind of all of the articles. The selectmen, as you know, did put in the article in the same format that I wrote, if you remember how we handed it out here, it was the article, and then the description underneath that is in the warrant. If you print out the warrant right now, that's in there as we printed it, so that was one that we put in. Just kind of neat. And that's there just as a placeholder, and I explained to them that the Finance Committee has already voted no recommendation pending further information, because we have no plans to use the reserves yet until we get a budget and start making some hard decisions as to what the budget contains. The budget that we're gonna get, whether it's tonight, tomorrow night, or whether it's by next Friday, the budget is going to be a balanced budget. And right now, as you know, there's at least $1 million deficit between receipts and what she has in the budget. So her budget, Carol's budget, the Director of Finance's budget, is going to be a balanced budget. And that will have some stuff that we'll have to talk about. Would you rather try and find money somewhere else, or do you want to make this cut? She'll have to make some reductions in the budget to meet a balanced budget. So we'll have a list of those. We'll decide how important those things are. We'll decide if we have any alternatives to those, and we'll vote ourselves. So we did talk about that. We talked about the capital plan and the state of readiness of the capital plan. John, you want to chime in on that?
Well, not so much the capital plan, but one other thing that we did, well, maybe we talk about the capital plan too. I mean, it was that, it was decided that it is a true 7-year capital plan. There was some discussion that it might be a 1-year capital plan based on someone's interpretation of what the people of town voted for. But it has been determined that it will be a full 7-year capital plan presented to us, to selectmen, for approval. And the other thing that we briefly touched about, is which Angelo has been talked about in the past too, is the true costs of what administration of some programs are in town. Using various departments, services to render those services administered by another department. It was briefly touched upon, and it was agreed upon, I think, in principle at least, to further discuss it again. I know we further discuss these things, but it's some things I'm learning, sitting here, things take a little more time than what I'd like to see as far as the time frame. But at least it's brought up again, and I think it's definitely worth discussing.
You learn anything in government, right? You learn patience, right? So
I've learned that town budgets aren't necessarily run like a corporation's budget, so.
Well, it's 5 or 6 years ago, we got one of those budgets every month,
right.
right? So, I mean, it's been done before,
Yes.
Yeah.
and,
But it was mostly and the discussion was mostly about the revolving funds, and their, they set their fees at a rate to cover the program, but not the overhead. And even if they'd covered the overhead in their fees, there's no way to get it into the general fund unless basically you're capturing 2 different fees. One that would be a portion of the fee going into the general fund, and one would be that. So there was a lot of discussion, but basically it was everybody's consensus, I think, that that particular problem that's presented in that article is not going to be solved between now and September, but there's a real good shot of making progress between now and next May, when then we do it again. Angelo?
Dana, before you mentioned balanced budget, the comment.
Yes.
Balanced budgets are wonderful, except we have to know how they're balanced.
Yes, and you will know that.
Because I don't want to see taxes increased 50% to balance the budget.
Well, okay, so
And I like it to not grow at all.
right now, there's over $1 million worth of new taxes to support the budget, and there's over $1 million of receipts in there that we do not have. So if you want to cut $1 million out and see what that looks like, and then look at the amount of taxes that are in there and say, let's cut another $1 million, we can have that discussion.
Well, we've already,
But you'll know the number. You will know the
well, we
number.
already had that conversation, and particularly from you, about using some of the dollars we have already
Right, Right.
in our hands
yeah.
to cover it.
And that's why it was so important to, in the discussions, to keep talking about those things and identify those things. As Joe said tonight, he's working on those things, Carol's are working. It's not like, they want to make sure that people understand that they are listening and they are working the problem. And, you know, and I said that we would keep on talking about it. So, and that was pretty much the subcommittee meeting. Budgets, we didn't make any progress at all on the budgets. We have voted 2 of the 5 budgets. We voted for the tech school budget, and we voted for the water department budget. The town operating budget, we're supposed to get as a balanced budget tomorrow night. Supposedly last Thursday, the Monomoy school system revoted their budget. I have not seen any numbers of those yet, but we'll get those. And then there's the water and sewer budget, which is down from the original request. And we even talked about that as to whether there, you know, in the water enterprise fund, part of that money comes back to the town for the overhead, for the cost of accounting and all those things, and should there be that built into the water sewer budget as well? It's not right now, presently, and probably shouldn't be right now, but it's at least something that should be built into future budgets. So that's all we had on operating budgets, which gets us to warrant articles. So if we look at our list, the first 2 we have open are the 2 budgets that we're hoping to hear something about, and then the next one after that is also the budget. We have an article to adopt the capital plan. And this is only a request that we adopt something, just so that we have something to talk about and compare to at the public hearing. We don't have to, but I just think that it gives us a document to talk about. Now, after the public hearing, or between now and then, the town administrator and I are supposed to meet with Carol to discuss what we all came up with for a capital plan. As you know, I took last year's plan and took out the $50,000 items. I took out the lease for the lawnmower equipment at the golf course, which I didn't think was on the budget anymore. It's part of the budget, it's not part of the capital plan. And I clocked the numbers back to what was voted on last year's plan, and I took out the electric vehicles, because they were each under $50,000, even though there was one every year. They were independent buys. So that's the changes I made to the plan to come up with the plan that I've given you copies of. And the administration added a 7th year, and so I added that, which is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take last year's plan. We fixed last year's plan based on the language, or at least based on my interpretation of the language. And then we added the 7th year, and that, at least in terms of what was voted last year, I think is where we are. But whether all of you think that way, or whether you want to just hold it or do whatever, I'm looking for advice from you folks as to what you would like to do, knowing that a week from Friday, we have a public hearing on a capital plan. And my hope was that if tonight or tomorrow night we could vote that document, we'd at least have something to be able to put in the paper, so that people who were interested could look at a document and say, they like this, they don't like this, what's got to go, what's in, what's out, is all I was thinking. So I need to hear what the rest of the board's thinking.
Do we have to approve or act on, I should say, a capital plan in order for it to be discussed at a public hearing?
No. The only reason I was talking about that way is to have something in the paper. The other thing we could do is have copies of the old plan available and copies of the new rendition of the plan available, and say we'll be discussing both those options. We might have something from the town administrator by then. We might have 3 or 4 options that we eventually agree to vote on one. But I don't know how to get that to the public. In other words, it's not gonna do any good if we're here remotely and I have a stack of them, like you would normally come into the Griffin Room and pick up your copy and sit in the audience and go through it. We don't have that option. I'm looking for guidance as to how you want to approach a public hearing with or without some document that people have. It would be a,
The act on a capital plan and state that we, I forget what the terminology is, but we postpone for additional information.
yeah,
Because in my way of thinking, one would want to get some public input on their perspective.
right.
Okay.
And that's why I tried to do, we might have another public hearing after the warrant goes to print. I like to have one before, just for that reason, so that we have some direction from the public, if any. You never know who's gonna come, but if we would have some direction prior to the warrant going to print, prior to our final vote. We could reconsider it that night and say, geez, they don't like this idea at all, we better just make no recommendation. Or they say, geez, they really like this, and I don't know if we'll get anything. But right now, my dilemma is just how do we get the information out? There was a thing that went into the local paper as prescribed for a public hearing. That printed in the paper on August 6th. So that's already in the paper, but it has no plan with it. It just says there will be a public hearing. Now we're gonna have to post the agenda for that meeting, and I was hoping with the posting of the agenda to have something, or not.
I'm sorry.
But I'll look to you guys for that answer.
On this public hearing, could a member of the public request that something be added to the capital plan?
Well, certainly, but the rules of the capital plan are spelled out in the charter. Anybody can add something to the capital plan, but it takes a 2/3 vote of town meeting to do that. So,
Okay, so if somebody came to the public meeting
right,
and recommended that something be added,
right, a new pool, whatever, yes.
that would be written up as an article?
No, it would be an amendment to the motion to pass the capital plan.
Okay,
So the motion will be, I move we accept and adopt. And if there's changes from what was printed, we'd say, I move to accept and adopt with the following changes, and then that would be voted on. If someone got up and said, well, I want to amend it further and add something, yeah, that's certainly there. But all of those additions require a 2/3 vote. Angelo?
I think that you've made, excuse me, very good statements of how you modified the document. And I actually think it'd be much better for us to have your document here and vote on it if we think it makes sense, and not vote on it if we don't. And if we vote on it, it gets into the television.
Yep.
If people talk about it, it will get into the newspaper, and it will have to be voted. It's not going to become automatically the,
Right.
and also, the selectmen may decide that they have another way of
Yep.
what they want done.
Yep.
But I think it makes much more sense to do it rather than to talk about doing it. And it sounds, based on what you said, to be, exactly what we need to be doing.
All right.
But
Others?
I want to see it before I vote for it, so.
Yeah, I've given you copies already. I can give you a copy even tonight. We have discussed it a couple of times, but I'll find a copy for you tonight if you'd like.
I meant for the voting on it.
Okay, so maybe I'll make sure everybody has a fresh copy of it for tomorrow night when we can talk about it again. Does that make some sense? John?
I have a couple comments.
Sure.
If I may. I have the current list that you gave us of July 19th, 2020.
Yes.
I think is the latest one. There's about 6 items on that that I'd like to get some answers for. And the first one is the Arboretum construction project of $100,000.
Okay, so,
Here, it doesn't give a funding source.
right, so, what you have to remember is that on June 30th, after that vote, the rules changed, and as we sat in the subcommittee, the selectmen did explain that these new rules are in place, that we will follow the new rules. The new rules took out anything that were under 50,000.
Yeah, this is 100,000.
Right, let me finish. And if you look at the bottom of that column, what is there, like 7-point-something million dollars worth of projects? We do not have those all in the warrant. Some are in the warrant and some are not.
Right.
Some of these things will be included in future years or whatever. They have to fix some things. There's no doubt about that the new rules left the current capital plan in a state that they weren't expecting. They weren't expecting to have $7 million. We weren't expecting the virus. We weren't expecting to be where we are. So, when it comes to the individual articles, John, the capital plan is just the roadmap, but the first year of funding articles in the warrant, that's where you discuss an individual article as to what the funding source is and whether you think it's a good project for the town and so forth as you discuss the article. And not as part of the plan. It's already in the plan. To take it out is a 2/3 vote. We can vote to take it out. But right now, it's in the plan.
I understand, I can see it in the plan.
Right.
My question is, how's it being funded?
And my answer is, when we get to that article, we'll talk about how to fund it.
But it's not an article.
So we can't fund it this year.
Okay, okay.
So there would be an amendment to the, there are also rules in the capital plan that says if an article does not get funding at town meeting in the year that it's supposed to get funding, it automatically moves to the next year.
Okay.
So
Okay,
if selectmen don't choose to put an article in, even though the charter says they should, but again, we were all caught flat-footed with the new rules. So-
okay, so that's, I see $100,000 there, but I see it on another plan that a grant is supposed to materialize to pay
Right,
for.
right.
Moving down, the next one is the air packs, that's a grant one.
Right.
The pump ladder truck, we have it on your plan at $1 million, under initial, other capital plan, it's 1.1 million.
Right.
Do we know where the quint is in all this?
It hasn't, the bid has not come in,
Okay, okay.
which is when we talked about the articles, why we did not vote that article, because
Yeah.
we're waiting for the bid.
Next one that jumps out at me is the Allen Harbor Jetty construction. That moved up a year. That was in a plan for year 2000, fiscal year 22. Now it's in 21.
Right,
That's a-
because, why?
I don't know.
I'm gonna tell you why. Because last year, on the plan that we voted, the 19 plan that we voted on May of 2019,
Yeah,
it was in, we voted 2020 as the first year of the plan, and the second year of the plan was 2021. Well, last year it was in that part of the plan. This year, before, when the town, the one that you have with the blue top there, the town administrator put that together based on what was happening this year, he moved it into the next year. So that's his version of the capital plan, and the capital outlay committee's version of the capital outlay. But it's not what was voted as of the rules of the previous, of the June 30th vote.
so it was in it was in 21.
Right. So I put it back in 21.
Okay, so that explains that one. Well, I had to get Mr. Rodone in here on that one. $2 million.
Right.
And it's, And how
And
that's
there's
being-
no article in there for that one.
the- for the reconstruction.
Right.
So how are we voting, why are we voting on a plan that, I mean, the numbers are there, but they don't mean anything?
On some of if you look at the 20 or so different items that are on that first column, I think not quite half of them have articles associated to pay for that.
Right,
The other half do not.
yeah,
The $7.5 million, $7.3 million or whatever it is, it's not gonna be asked for from the
okay.
people at town meeting this year. So
we
the
can ask
selectmen,
them- We can ask them to approve the plan,
right, the
but not
selectmen,
the funding of it.
no, the selectmen will get up at town meeting after we've made a motion to approve a plan, and they will get up to amend that plan. At least that's what I'm thinking. They will get up and amend that plan to fix these things. They will have their own little mini plan of what to do with these odd items like
Okay.
this. And they will bring that forward, and that will take a 2/3 vote to pass.
Okay,
And hopefully people will understand what they're doing and pass that. And then the new amended plan would go forward. And then in May,
yikes.
you'd have a much better, cleaner plan than what you have right now. This is a mess right now because of,
But, yeah, I
the
think it'll be
changes.
confusing, yeah. Anyway, but the other two remaining articles on your plan is 600,000 for a roundabout that was in '22, that's pushed
that's
up a
not
year.
being funded at all.
And then the vehicle listing summary of, I guess it's DP, or a vehicle somewhere, of 355,000,
Right, that is in
This year's,
this
yeah.
year's article.
but it wasn't.
I think you guys have already voted this, I was left the room on that one, but I think,
But did we vote on that one? That was an article? Okay. We did vote for,
yes, now Article 17, you voted 6-0 to support that.
okay,
Right.
that was the pumper outer for the drains and things like, okay.
Okay,
Yeah, because I just, looking at one plan and not seeing it in another plan,
I will,
and no
so,
funding sources. Yeah.
to get past this,
I understand.
I will send out a new version of this. And the first year, I will put, like you see in green, the 7th year is in green, right? The first year, I will put blue for all the items on there that have an article in the warrant to support them.
Okay,
And then you'll be able to see the yellow ones as ones that need to be fixed. You'll be able to clearly see that, all right? So I'll do that for everybody for tomorrow night. And we'll discuss it
Because
again.
it's good to know what's funded and what
Right,
isn't funded.
yes,
I
very
mean,
important.
It's very simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dana, can you?
Angelo?
Can you check and find out if John Rendon is gonna try and get that supported? I know that it's a real problem that they're dealing with,
Okay,
and they may
I'll
have,
talk to him tomorrow.
they may have enough
I can.
money,
If he's available.
excuse me, over time to pay for the debt.
Right.
I would imagine that'd be a debt exclusion.
Yeah, but if it was debt exclusion, they have, they make money on their revenue,
Yes,
Right.
so they can pay for it.
I'll see if I can get the quick version of that.
it's like the
Yeah.
fees again, Angelo.
It's fees.
All right, so,
Okay,
we won't vote that one tonight.
okay, I understand.
There was items under free cash, items from free cash less than $50,000. These were items that were on the plan that were under $50,000. The town administrator is working on that right now. He will bring that forward to us. Hopefully, between now and Friday, we should be able to vote this one by Friday, okay? But we can't vote it tonight, we don't, he's still working on it. The facility maintenance repair, exact same answer. He's working on that one with the people involved, and we should have an answer on that one soon. The new ambulance and the Quint, we're waiting for bids. So if we get to Friday and we don't have bid information, we don't have exact cost, we will make no recommendation pending further information. So that then later we'll have a bid cost, is the way we would approach something like that.
Are we trying to get, remember we talked about that, of going to town meeting with a full, filled-in vote for us?
We'll have a filled-in vote, but some of them will say, no, because we just don't have the information. We're not gonna have the information on Article 4 to stabilize, use the stabilization fund. We're not gonna have that vote by Friday. Friday's our deadline, so Some of these things we're not gonna have this information on.
Next
But-
Friday.
Yeah, a week from tomorrow, week from this Friday.
Yeah.
But last time, there was one town meeting, and we can talk about this as we get closer, where the Finance Committee took their final votes well enough in advance of town meeting that they were able to have a document printed and inserted into the warrant that people would have as a, the missing pieces, so that they would have our recorded votes on those articles, and our reason,
Yes.
more important, our reason for support or non-support. All right, so if we can, you know, we still go meeting, we're just trying to do what we can between now and the
I
printing.
understand, yeah.
There, you see under, after 25, there is a planning board article. We don't know where in the warrant that's going to be or what shape that's in, but in the latest version, if you printed it out, it's in there. And it's a planning board article. We have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund on hold. I haven't got the answer on that yet. The two revolving funds, let's talk about the first one, which on this list is Article 35. And let's talk about that one for a second. I can find it quick enough.
Page 22. If that-
Oh, okay. Three departments, the community center, the Conservation Commission, and the cemetery are all looking to, so this article does not set any money. It just defines the ways you can use the money that's in the funds. And the weight room money is going from, right now, that particular revolving fund is part of recreation. And they're trying to, as they've done on other things in the past, make it go to the right place where it should be. It should be as part of the community center rather than part of recreation. As you know, there's 4 departments that work out of the community center building. The community center is the one that controls the weight room. And they handled that, and so this would move it out of there to there. And it also expands it to have the instructors that they use there for teaching nutrition and things like that to do with the weight room and the proper use of the weights and so forth like that. The weight room fees could cover that if some of that fee was used towards paying these instructors. So rather than have the budget pay for those this year, they're asking that it goes from the article. On the wetlands, they have if you remember their revolving fund list, they have a $6,000 revolving fund. So it's not a lot of money no matter what, but they want to be able to, in addition to, they want to be able to use that to also hire consultants. It would be a specific consultant to help with this particular project, and they might get paid a $200 fee or an $800 fee or whatever to do that work. That would come through this revolving fund, is the explanation for that one. The cemetery one is a little bit different. That one's, I have more questions on, but that one would include a part-time salary and wages for a part-time person. That, to me, is a whole different ballgame.
Right.
That's hiring someone to work part-time for the town, rather than a consultant or a 1099 kind of person that you're just paying a fee to. This is hiring someone. And there was a debate at the subcommittee meeting as to whether or not that should be at town meeting voted on by the people, which this article would be, but separately, in a separate article for that position. But that one, part of this is still under control or under observation or whatever, scrutiny. So it could be we get to a motion at some point that says we're supporting the first 2 changes as follows and not the third one, something like that. But that's when we get to the motion. Right now, it's that third part's still up in the air, so I would recommend that we hold that one a little bit longer. Unless Angelo has a question.
Question. It strikes me as odd. So these groups are saying that they want to do such and such. Why don't they put it in their current budget?
Right.
Why do we allow them to take a pile of money and decide after the meeting, basically, what they want to do with it? If
Right.
indeed they want to do thus, and the town votes for it, it could be in their, in the budget and the operating budget.
Okay, so just,
And you can use their funds, you can, I'm sure Carolyn can say, yeah, their funds go towards it.
okay, so in the next article is where you answer that question. The funding is being requested there in that article. This article just defines the use of those funds. Right now, they cannot use any of their fund, which they're already getting, it's already in a fund. They cannot use that for consultants or something like that. So that's being defined. Now, and that's where we came at the subcommittee last night, to do that, to pull out what can be budgeted, to take that out of the revolving accounts, to expand the receipts so that we could use that money this year to support the budget. We're talking about $1.2 million. Everybody just seems to feel to do that in a month's time is not gonna happen. There's not gonna be enough time to sort that all out now, which is why they're thinking that between 6 months from now, in May, you could do that, but not in time for this one. At least, we could attempt it, but we're not gonna get the cooperation of the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator and the people we would need to help do that. We would just be making a motion all by ourselves, and that doesn't, that kind of defeats the purpose of trying to go in as unified as possible on some of these things. So that's the thumbnail explanation as to why. I agree with you. I would love to see a lot of the revolving kind of funds that are every year. They play the same kind of things every year. Budget it, put the money in the budget, have the money come to the general fund. If they're short on one thing, it can be picked up a little bit. If it's long on another thing, it still goes into the general fund. But overall, they're budgeted each year. That can't be solved between now and next month.
I think if you can solve, excuse me, I think it could be solved simply. All we do is try and get an article passed that says you can only use that fund for whatever you get approved at the meeting.
Right. Well, if for each of the funds that there are now, each of those amounts that are in there, they have a list of approvals in terms of what they can use it for. These three departments are looking to expand that list to include new things. And one of them's not really an expansion, it's more of a switch from recreation to community center.
I'm not talking about that general. I'm
Okay.
talking about, we will add a window to this building with it.
Right,
Know what you're gonna do with the money.
right.
So the people know what's gonna happen with the money, rather than one time they change this, and then they do that. They
Right.
should have it covered.
So I think between now and Friday, we will at least have the information we need to make some sort of vote. But I don't think we have it tonight. And we're getting closer. But hopefully, I'm hoping that by Friday that can be one of our votes. And it would be based on the first article. Do you want to expand all three of those things? Do you want to expand two out of the three of them? Do you want to switch it to the community center? Those kind of questions are asked in the first article. And it's right now a way to relieve pressure off the budget, which, as we know, was going to be tight. To add that back in would cost us even more money. And where does it come from? The second article, we would probably, if we, at least the way I sensed the board when we first talked about it, the board would rather cut some of these down and take some of them out and not approve them. The town administrator's doing what he can for that right now. If you look at the current version of the budget, it doesn't have any of those things filled in yet. It's all blank spaces, and he wants to put in what he feels is necessary. So he's doing that homework right now for us. We don't have to do that, but we hope to have a vote by Friday. Okay? John?
One last comment on the previous Article 35.
Yeah.
But my personal opinion, I don't think this is the time that we should be increasing headcount, part-time or full-time.
Right. I think,
And in the description in the article, there is no explanation on the cemetery's use of the revolving fund. There is for the community center has an explanation, the wetlands has an explanation. There is no explanation for the cemetery why they want an additional head there.
right, which is why we could make the motion that we approve the first two.
Unless someone comes to us
And
and
then-
says, this is why they need that.
Right, and then they could amend that at town meeting, and town meeting could decide that, which
Yeah.
is where you want to decide it anyways.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's us to recommend it, but they'll decide it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that it's an expansion
Yeah.
of personnel.
And is that person,
Unless someone comes forward and convinces me otherwise, I feel the same way.
and is that person, that part-time salary, is that an administrative part-time salary? Which I'm guessing it is, because the maintenance, care, and support is already supported by the highway department.
Yeah.
So that's
Anyway.
clearly an increase of a slow increase of an additional head count there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we're still holding those. That gets us to our favorite subject, the Article 40, which is the plastic water bottle ban. We had those folks in last week. I would be prepared to accept a motion on that tonight. I don't see any reason why we're holding that unless people still have additional questions. John?
Just to answer that, I am going to meet with the climate change people tomorrow. And when they came before us last week,
Right.
I asked if I could meet with them, and Robin Lord reached out to me and said she would like to meet with me. And I'm going to meet her and either 2 or 3 of her committee members on the climate change one only. I just
Right.
wanted to understand it more. My mind is kind of made up, but I'd like to listen to her tomorrow, and I can happy to bring that discussion to the board tomorrow night and tell her what,
Okay.
I'll tell you how I feel differently than
All right.
that she changed my mind completely, but,
When we get to that, we'll talk about
okay.
it. Right now, we're talking about plastic bottles.
Oh, plastic bottles, I'm sorry. I thought you said the 2 articles, I'm
No, no.
sorry.
There's 2 articles on plastic bottles. One, the first one
Oh,
is
okay, I'm
to
sorry.
expand it to all plastic bottles for water, non-carbonated, the definition, in Harwich, all retail.
Last year, when the Finance Committee acted on Article 50, we recommended that the article be indefinitely postponed
That we did.
with the rationale that, hold on.
We did have an explanation.
Yeah. It's just a rather lengthy explanation, but we did, the point being that we recommended that it be indefinitely postponed.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that now we have an article that wants to ban all plastic bottles
In the rest of the town
in the rest of the town.
for sale.
And wouldn't we be consistent to say that that article should also be postponed indefinitely? Because I think you even may have made the comment that you thought that this should be a state mandated.
Definitely. We're not going to change manufacturing here at this level. In terms of, well, let's talk about getting a motion first. Are we ready to make a motion on this or not? Is anybody willing to come forward with a motion to support or deny this expansion of the?
John's going to come back to
What-
us tomorrow.
Well, no, that's
No,
the climate
that's a
change,
different
forget that. That was climate
Oh, that's
change.
the climate change.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I get screwed up.
Yeah.
So which one, we got 2 articles. One is to,
First one is to expand, the second one is to rescind.
okay,
So the first one we're talking about right
Okay.
now, the expansion of
the bottle
the
ban,
bottle ban
plastic water bottle.
to
water.
cover all retail in Harwich. Angelo?
It's rather interesting, in the last 3 or 4 days, on television were some information about water bottles and plastic. One is apparently somebody has discovered a way to take the used bottles, chop them up, and turn them into basically material that can be used in fixing roads.
Yep.
And
I saw
so
that, yep.
the comment that was made that we're only getting a little bit money back from getting back the empty bottles probably will change because there'll be a need for the bottles. And the other thing that I found out is that the federal government controls the stuff that is in the water. And they can only go up to a certain level, which is all right for people to drink, I guess. And so that they're not poisoning people, apparently. And the federal government's the one that controls it. So if you do put water in the bottle, you have to
Meet that standard.
meet the standard. So those are two things that I think were not discussed too strongly yet before.
Is there a motion?
To make any type of motion?
What motion would you like to make?
I'd like to make a motion to indefinitely postpone this article.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Now, under that discussion, that's where I would say that one of the disturbing things when they came before us, if you think of the people you're going to see coming before us, they were very amenable to what we had to say. They took that into account. They're exploring the idea of making that a resolution instead of a bylaw, which I think we would support. I'm not sure, but I just think so. They had a very open approach to this board anyways. And the next group came in and almost didn't even, I mean, I didn't want to let us talk. They said, we will be educated, we will learn what they have to say, and they are going to do that. The biggest complaint I always have on these things is whether or not the group before them has done their homework in the town of Harwich. The town of Harwich, they're asking for a bylaw here, not for the state, not for the rest of Cape Cod, not anywhere else, here. We're not considering any of the other towns and what they're doing. They may or may not vote for this. Our town may or may not vote for this, but there is no information that they will put forward other than it's going to affect every retail item as to what this will cost. How many bottles? What percentage of the world, they cited many world figures, what percentage of that is Harwich? Well, I can tell you 321,000 people are born every day. We have 12,000 people here. We have 40,000 in the summertime. We're not a very big percentage of the world problem. And we don't control any portion of that here in Harwich. We don't control manufacturers. We don't control consumption. We don't control what's brought in from other towns. None of that. But they never have gone before the retailers here in Harwich or the Chamber of Commerce or anybody to see how does this affect your business. They're just saying that we need to do this or we're all going to die. And that's their answer. And I don't buy that answer. We're all going to die either way. Whether we have to be educated or not as to how that's going to be, I don't know. But I don't like that approach in front of this body, and I certainly don't like it as an approach to get something passed for the town of Harwich. So I'm going to vote against this, and I plan on speaking against this if we support that position. Anybody else? Brian?
No, I don't want to speak on this, thank you.
You had some very good thoughts that night about their approach,
Yeah,
which
my
you
thoughts
seem to
relative
think.
to approach are concurrent with yours. So I thought they approached it all wrongly. I thought they were hostile, and I don't like being told we're going to educate you whether you like it or not. So I agree with you completely.
Whether the sentiment is a good sentiment or not, and as a resolution, this would pass handily, but as a bylaw in the town, I don't think so. Other comments? Angelo?
Well, just a comment, I think one of the problems we have is that people do throw the bottles around. and, empty bottles and throw them on the beach and all. And I think we should raise the fee if you get caught, that it's $100 or whatever for a drop of the bottle. And that, I think, will empty it, or maybe you put a 10-cent return.
I spent several hours today of my day picking up those very same water bottles at the town landfill facility, because they can't even hit the container that they go into. And it's a pretty big container,
But I think that,
and they're there.
I think a step has to be taken to get people
Yeah.
from not wanting to throw it around.
Yeah.
All right. Any discussion further on this? The motion is to indefinitely postpone the article. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's a unanimous vote, and it's 6-7 to 0. So IPP 7-0. Which brings us to the next article, which is brought in by a local person to rescind last year's Article 50, which had its own explanation. And the Finance Committee did not support last year's article. It passed, and then, that's, can be true of any article, whether we support it or not. But it did not, it did pass. And this person who wrote this says, all right, we've had it for a year now. Might have been some unintended consequence of that, and she talked a lot about the effect on some of the charity organizations and other people trying to use town land. And that's her argument for rescinding this. Where are we on this one? Does anybody want to make a motion on this one?
Well, my way of thinking, since we just indefinitely postponed the town-wide ban, to take up an action other than to definitely postpone this, or to make a motion to not recommend, would be consistent with our previous action.
Right. Last year, we did not favor the article passing. It passed, so she's trying to rescind that. So you're saying we should support that?
No, I'm saying that we should indefinitely postpone.
And definitely postpone the
Well, that puts them at
rescinding?
a disadvantage continually. until-
That continues their disadvantage, is what that does. They want to rescind, they want to go back to, the town can still buy water bottles. Right now, the town, the municipality cannot buy water bottles, and they want to make it so that we can again, as a town.
I'm saying that we should remain consistent with what passed at the town meeting last year.
Which is, yes,
Which is against,
it would be a no vote then on
would
this.
be a no vote.
Not a continuing, not a definitely postponement, but a no vote.
Well, I said that, either indefinitely postpone or no.
I think we should have everybody on a level playing field until we decide which way to go with the bottles altogether.
Right.
Whether it's town or private or whatever.
Right.
I agree.
So in order to get to that point, you would support this article
Yes.
to rescind last year's action.
Yep.
Because last year it passed. Even though we were against it, it still passed. So you want to get back to it being unpassed so that everybody can purchase water bottles, whether it's the town or the stores or the public. Do you understand where I'm going from? Does anybody else? Does somebody want to make a motion on that fact?
Just one last thing. I'm a firm believer in
They're coming
support.
for you.
Part- I'm a firm believer in supporting what town meetings vote for.
Yes.
And last year, they voted for a ban on this. And,
Yes.
And I would support that ban. I may disagree with it, but I support the ban. And then let town meeting decide as a whole body now, whether they want to rescind
Right.
the bottom.
Right.
And I
So-
would be happy to speak to that at the town meeting too, why I voted,
Right. Someone might ask.
yeah.
So
Right.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion
Sure.
that we vote to not rescind Article 50 from last year's town meeting, and we allow it to remain as it is presently, based upon the will of the town.
Okay?
That's my
Is there a
motion.
second to that?
I'll second that.
All right, so there's a motion and second to not support the article. Angelo?
I don't understand that. We just voted to put in an article for every place
Right,
to,
We didn't vote, actually, we voted to indefinitely postpone.
right.
that's what it means.
Okay, it means that's not been resolved one way or the other. This was voted by
it's-
town meeting
Right.
last year.
Right,
Definitely
And-
postpones
means no, but,
means no.
Right.
That means no.
but in any event, what they're saying is that town meeting took an action last year, and they're supporting that action. The new information that was brought in the petition has not swayed them to change their mind on that, is what they're saying. So it's
Well,
okay.
The people who are putting up with it haven't had an option, a way of changing their mind.
Right. This
So,
is the next town meeting, right.
This is
So-
the next town meeting. So
Right.
the question is, if you as a person think that it didn't work, because if you talk to the police or the fire department, they're not very happy about it. If it didn't work, this would be the time you would say, okay, let's change it. And then what you do is you're giving the town an option to change it or not change it.
Right.
And
The
so-
town, either way, the town meeting's going to decide this. We just have to decide how we're
Yeah, so-
advising them on that.
So I don't think we have to advise them not to change it if we want to change it.
I don't want to change it.
Well, then you vote no
I made the
for it.
motion.
Okay,
I definitely don't want to change it, and I've moved it.
Right. Okay, and there's a second. Further discussion. Anything, Mark? Dale?
So the motion is, again,
Motion, I've moved that we not rescind Article 50 from last year's town meeting.
So basically, it would be
Allow
to,
it to remain as
it would
voted.
also be to indefinitely postpone this article, basically. Because the article's asking to rescind it, and you're saying no.
Right, that's
So
correct.
it's
I'm
indefinitely
voting no.
postpone of this
I'm
article.
moving that we not rescind this.
Right.
Our recommendation be that we
Right.
not rescind this.
So it's not to accept and adopt it, it's to indefinitely postpone it. It's kind of some double speak here, but that's, I understand where we
Yes.
are.
okay.
So,
got it.
is there any other discussion on that motion? Those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
So we got 4, and those opposed, aye, aye, aye. So it's 4-3, the motion carries, indefinite postpone.
And, Angela, you've heard from the police and fire that they are adamantly against this?
ask them the problems they had trying to get stuff for
Okay.
them to carry and stuff.
Because I thought they were exempt from this.
Only in emergencies.
Yeah. Okay.
Only, right, only in emergency. So, now, right now, we're living under COVID, so is that a worldwide emergency? Everything is, if this was just a hot summer without COVID, the question then is, do you allow water bottles, right? But right now, we're under an emergency, so they can buy them. But their associations have been buying them, so. In any event, that's where we are. It was a good vote. It was a good discussion. I like things like that.
Yeah.
It was well thought out. If we get new information on any article that we take a position on, we can change those positions, all right? We agreed that we'll let John come back to us tomorrow night with his version of the new climate. He better have something really good, because I've already made up my mind as to where I'm going with this. If it's a resolution, I'm going to support it. If it's a bylaw, I'm going to be against it. But
And
that's,
I'll convey.
right now, the proposal is a bylaw, so,
That's
I
kind of
feel
my
like it's a
sentiment, and
foot
I
in
will
the door.
convey that to them.
okay.
I feel like it's a foot in the door. It's a no-cost foot in the door. And then
Yeah.
next year, they'll come back and say, remember when you said you were gonna do this? Now's the time to do it.
Did you remember that last
Now
year
it's
on the
gonna
water
cost you.
bottles? So in any event, that takes care of that one.
Okay?
And that is all of the articles that we can vote tonight. It's only 2 we took a position on, but at least it's 2 more. And that, I think, gets us to 34, 33, 34, something like that, that we voted on. So we're gonna try and do a couple more tomorrow night, especially if we can get some budget information. We'll have John's, we might be able to do a few more. And then by Friday, we're gonna try and vote a few more that we can vote, but then we're gonna make no recommendation on all the rest of them, so that we have a fully printed warrant that has our positions. And then after the warrant goes to print, we'll continue to research the ones that we have no recommendation on to try and see if we will have to, between then and town meeting, have a position for town meeting. And if we can do that early enough on those, we'll talk about whether we put a separate sheet in and into the warrant. We'd have to get, you get permission from that, from the clerk, and you get permission from the moderator, but it's gonna be an outdoor meeting. If it's raining, it's not gonna be pretty.
Just a clarification.
Yes.
The article we just voted on, it was 3 to 4 not to rescind it, right? I mean, so the,
Well, the motion is
4-3
to
not to
indefinitely
rescind.
postpone. It wasn't to accept and adopt it. It was 4-3. The motion carried. The motion that was
Postpone.
originally made.
yeah, to
Okay.
postpone it, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I just read it rescinded, and there was 3 votes to rescind it and 4 not to rescind it.
Right.
Right, okay.
So seeing that the article is asking to rescind it, if you accepted the article, it would be 3-4.
Right,
So now we're down to 4-3 to indefinitely postpone it. All
okay.
right?
It was a no, yeah,
Yes.
Your
It was a no,
Friday
yes.
Your Friday's a week from this Friday, right?
right.
Right. So
Yeah.
tomorrow,
Keep on saying
tomorrow,
that, it scares
I
me.
know, yeah.
Tomorrow and then next.
tomorrow we meet. We have more information, and then we have a few days off, a few evenings off, which we can all enjoy, and
This is fun.
And when's our next meeting?
Tomorrow.
after that,
Tomorrow night.
I have given you,
Tomorrow night.
I have put out a full schedule there, but I'll reprint that as well, so you, everybody know where we are. And I'm thinking that, depending on how many articles we have and so forth, and what's going on there, we're going to be able to maybe take some of those nights off without having to have 2 a week every week for that. And then there's going to be 1 week that I personally am going to be away during that time, and I'm gonna ask John as practice, I'm gonna ask him to put together the agenda, to post the agenda, to conduct the meeting.
Wash your
and
car.
Wash my car, whatever, so that he basically goes through the whole program from one end to the other as a grooming tool for future endeavors, so that he's just prepared to do that. I'll secretly be watching it from wherever I am.
Nanny cam.
Yes.
Public hearing, where's that gonna take place?
Right here, it's a virtual public hearing, and it's stated that way, but people need the call-in stuff. So we'll discuss that again tomorrow night. You'll have more tools in front of you tomorrow night. I'll send that tonight or either first thing tomorrow morning, like I generally do. I get up at 5:30 to do these things. But you'll have more information, and I just, mechanic-wise, want to be able to figure out how we have that meeting, that's all.
Dana, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but we've talked a lot about the taxes that perhaps should be applied for next year, or the control of the total budget and everything. Do you think it makes sense for us to have a discussion and either vote or not vote it, for the fact that taxes should stay at whatever level we think?
Sure. I think once you have that document in your
And send-
hands,
And send that to the selectmen as,
yeah, yeah,
as a,
Yeah.
something we would like to do.
yep. We're both bodies are working to try and be on the same page, and if they really know where we're coming from, that helps them. I think that once we have the budget in front of us, and we know how much of that budget is raise and appropriate versus how much is fees, and where our shortages are, then we can discuss it. And then we can take a position, yes,
I'm
I
just
agree.
talking about the tax position.
Well, they're interrelated. Our budget is made up of both. And if you lower one and you can't raise the other one, whichever side it is, it means you're making more cuts, right? If you're not going up on taxes and you're going down on fees, that means you're making more cuts. And the cuts may be okay and we're able to make some more, or they might be so severe we're going, we can't do this. So it's better to have it in front of us and talk about them. All right, that's all I had for tonight. I thank you. Does anybody else have anything? Brian, Mark, John,
Nope, I'm fine.
Al?
Good.
Dan, Angelo? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.